Sorry, I had to drop off there. We just had a connection issue. I'm gonna try to get this stable. Okay, I think this is good. Okay. Okay, so this is episode 15 of Uncommon Conversations. My name is Jordan Farmer, and my guest today is Moody Black, a spoken word poet who a spoken word poet who has also had a TikTok, or sorry, a TED Talk, a TikTok, a TED Talk. Um, yeah. Okay, he's back. Cool. It says you are unable to join. Instagram is so temperamental. I don't know why why it's having this issue. Let me try again. I'm trying to accept you, but it says it doesn't want to go through. There we go. And you're clear. We finally got it. We
Well, I switched
we've hit the
devices, man.
promised land.
I'm on my iPad. I was on my phone, but on my iPad now, so this might be a little better.
Okay.
Can you hear me good? You hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you good. I can see you good. Everything is
right.
top notch. Top notch. All right. So thank you so much for coming on, sir. And I'll just do my little intro spiel one more time, and then we'll get to it. So I call myself a modern moderate politically, which just means modern. You're always taking in new information, always trying to evolve with the times because things are always changing. You need to keep up with the real world. And on the moderate front, I just believe good ideas and good points can come from everywhere. And so you got to listen to everybody if you expect to get the full picture, basically, of politics. So two examples. So I grew up kind of on the right politically. So two examples of super left-wingers, and arguably that have made very profound points that I value that kind of show this perspective to be true. As we get into more policies, you'll probably see me more as a right-winger. I don't know. Unfortunately, that's like one of those taboo categories of like, ooh, you're a right winger, bad guy. Ugh. So that's unfortunate. But anyways, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pointed out that in our law, we have a gap in how we treat Islamic domestic terrorism or terrorism on our borders versus white supremacist terrorism on our borders. And we over prosecute the Islamic terrorism by comparison. So that doesn't make any sense because the underlying crime is the same. So their ties or association shouldn't have that stigma or any kind of different treatment under the law. I'm very much a equality under the law person. That's all citizens, equality under the law. That's what it's about. So I thought that was brilliant. And then Ilhan Omar also was the first person at the national level that I heard to bring up the issue of China's treatment of Muslims in their country. I think it's in the Shangjin province. I have a hard time remembering all the provinces in China. They have many, but they have between 1 and 2 million Uyghur Muslims that have been in re-education camps over the last 5 or 6 years. And there's a lot of dark theories as to why they're doing it. But anyway, she was the first person to bring it up, and she's Muslim herself, so it kind of, on some level, it makes sense why it would touch her heart more than others, maybe. But took courage and it took balls to say it, to bring it up, to talk about China on that kind of a level in public. So it's I commend her for that. And so so that's me. That's sort of my political philosophy and wheelhouse. You, my good sir, are a creative of many sorts. Please give me and the audience an introduction.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Moody Black. I am, as aforementioned, an artist of all sorts: visual artist, spoken word artist, hip hop artist, just artists, but teaching artists as well. As far as politics concerned, I like to always give a disclaimer, man. I tell people on that regard, I'm not really per se a politician or one who ever desired to be in politics in that level, but I'm very astute in what's going on and being the voice for my people, so to speak, but not from a level of a high pedestal. You know, I never wanted to be that person. I never want to be that type of leader. I'm a leader of some sorts, but I never want to be in the spotlight because I am a regular person. I do regular people stuff. I commit regular sins. I drink. I do other things. I partake. So I put that out there because I don't want no one ever to say, well, how you speaking on that? Because he do this, he do that. Now I'm a regular person. So I take pride in that by no means. But I'm a very intelligent man, and I'm very perceptive of what's going on. I don't consider myself a left winger or a right winger because to me, they're all part of the same bird. To me. But
I agree.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. And just from a standpoint of a people who's been disenfranchised by the system a lot of times, so I don't really take those kind of sides. But I do know what's wrong and right and how.
I just want to say for the audience, I did not know this going in. I had no idea as to your political affiliations. I just wanted to talk to you.
Yeah,
so
no problem.
that's kind of cool.
And for those listening, my brother approached me and said, hey, can we talk about this and that? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Because I love to talk. Those who know me, I love to talk. I love formulating opinions, for lack of a better word, but I love just getting data. Put it like that. I love getting data and see how I feel about it. But yeah, man, it's the world we live in. We got to have some kind of understanding about it. So I always try to stay abreast of what's going on and give it from perspective, not only for my own, but for my people.
Nice that beard, last little bit cut out slightly, sorry.
Oh, by the way, man, I love your beard, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is this all is just the result of I cut this super short and then trimmed this down bare and everything, and then it's just slowly filled out. Yeah, I like yours too, brother. I respect a good beard. You know, I try to do my thing. So yeah, for the most part I always get like that's a weird beard, bro, kind of answer. So I appreciate the love.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. Right.
Well, let's get into it, man. I'm ready. Let's do it. Yeah,
we'll get into it. So spoken word, what was your sort of exposure to it at first? How'd you get into it, and what does it mean to you? What do you think it does societally and sort of beyond just the art form?
Well, my mom, I always give credit to my mom, single parent. She would work all during the day, and she would take college courses at junior college in our town of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And she would bring home literature books and try to make my sister and I read it when we were young. And I hated reading back then. I didn't want no parts of it. But it wasn't until I was bored one day. We had this long hallway. In that hallway, we had one bookshelf, 3 shelves. And I'm just going through the bookshelf, and I came across this book. And of course, you know, when you're young, the first thing you look for is pictures. So I'm looking for the pictures. I'm seeing a cool picture. So this book was called This Time Called Life. And the pictures were soft black and white photos of young people hanging out, young people playing in nature. So that drew me in. And beside each picture, there were poems. So I read the poems. So I ended up reading the whole book.
That's cool.
It wasn't a thick book, man. I ended up reading the whole book in one day. And as an 11, 12-year-old preteen, whatnot, it was intriguing because it was talking about being young and free. Of course, you're young, you want to be free. And I was attracted to it. Yeah. So ever since then, man, I started getting to poetry. I went back to appreciate the poets. My mom tried to get me to read and get into the Maya Angelou's, Langston Hughes, and Nikki Giovanni's, all those. I ended up having a deeper appreciation for that one book. And just I started growing, man. I just started getting more into poetry. Of course, I got picked on in school because I was doing the nerd stuff. But yeah, I owned it. By the time I got to high school, those same people teased me, wanted me to write poems for them to get to their boyfriends or girlfriends, what have you. And I was like, yeah, $10. So I was a young entrepreneur as well. But
right on.
I saw power in it. It was a voice when I started back listening to all these poets, even the old greats, you know, the William Wordsworth and E. Cummings and all those. I'm like, there's lessons in these poems. There's venting. There's this, you know, a tale of the times in these poems, and I saw value in that. and I understand my position and all our position as poets, that we're not only telling how we feel, but how we expressing what's going on around about the things that surround us. So it's very important, and especially nowadays when I go to schools and talk to young people, I tell them the importance of writing because it's so much going on. You got to be able to get it out. If you just
Yeah.
start with journal, if you
Yeah.
start with journaling, just start somewhere. Then the creative process and learn all the poetic devices that'll come in time. Just be able to have that voice, to be able to get it out. Even just somewhere, some form of therapy. I tell people it's not the end all, the be all, to cure all your ills, but it's a step. It's a step, man. Once you just write it and get it out and express yourself.
Yeah. So, writing is a great discipline to try to adopt. It's something that I didn't appreciate in my younger years as much. I did do a little bit. So interestingly enough, I did a little bit of poem writing in my teen years. I enjoyed that on maybe for like a year and a half. I was really into it, and then it kind of died out. I moved on to caring about strength sports and bench pressing and all that kind of stuff in high school.
Which is necessary. You get the physical. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely necessary for me to develop into more of a man, and to both physically and mentally. You show up, you understand that you show up more, you get more results in the weight room. Like it gives you a certain sort of basic lesson of life.
Yeah. I'm like, well, you take that anywhere with you, man. The more repetitive you are showing up.
Yeah. It's just, I love I appreciate it because like, in many aspects of life, you don't necessarily get good feedback, but when you can lift 5 pounds more, you don't need any feedback. You got the reward is a part of it. So I like that. It's interesting because you said you got into poetry and you really liked the freedom of 11 or 12 years old. When I was I was like a martial arts fan, Bruce Lee fan as a kid, and like got into stuff and loved Power Rangers and Heroes and stuff. So when I got a hold of Harry Potter when I was 11 or 12. And in a month and a half, I went through the full, like 6 books. The 7th one wasn't out yet, but I went through the full thing because it just gripped me, because it's a true like hero's journey type of story. And it's about, there's, as I've listened to it as an adult, there's things like the mentors, right? The demented aspects of life suck the happiness out, pull the happiness out, and they can make you lose your soul if you're so consumed in the darkness, right? Like that's very much true about life. You can lose your soul and get disenfranchised if you just get consumed in nothing but negativity. And the happy memories and moments you have is how you combat that. You think about the ones you love and the special moments of life. That's how you combat the darkness and stuff like that in your own life. Like taking it sort of from the story to real life in that way. It like I didn't know that as a kid. As a kid, I didn't know about interpretations of narratives or anything like that. I just liked the story. But later on, I could see why it gripped me in a better way because of Jordan Peterson's work. I don't know if you know Dr. Jordan Peterson, but
that's my dude.
He's awesome, man. He's
real. Yeah, you agree with him, he real.
Yeah, his lectures on maps of meaning and talking about Carl Jung and the Lion King and sort of narratives and stuff helped me see stories on a level that I had not seen before. And that helped me see art in a way I hadn't seen before. I was never that into art. I was into ideas, which, obviously art is sort of like tied in there, but not directly. And I wasn't sort of privy to that next layer. I was just like, I like ideas. I'm a math guy. I'm very like mechanical in that way, in the way I think. But anyways, yeah. So Harry Potter was what gripped me, not so much poetry, but it had its own benefits, and it's definitely tied into what I'm trying to do. And I mean, I love poets. I think one of the core of my philosophy is this: that part of what makes humans so meaningful and like divinely special is our creative and productive capacity.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, like, if you create a piece of art that someone else created, but it's like slightly different because you did it your way and it's like you made it, that's a special thing. It doesn't have to be a unique new creation necessarily to even get that productivity sort of marker. But when you can create something truly new, like if you believe that God is the creator, then the godly thing to do is to create, right?
Love it.
And that's the divinity that we have. That's what we can do. We can create as human beings. So it's a beautiful thing. Anywho, so I don't know how that was tied into what we were talking about. Oh, the poets and stuff. poetry,
Yeah,
like that's one of the most pure, because it's using words, it's using ideas to express a sort of central point. It's like the purest form of art in some way, for humans at least, because like we have language. That's the only art, like type of art, that is completely unique to us. Birds can sing, and like sounds can be made by other animals, and paintings are done by elephants. But like a poem, there's no poems outside of us.
right.
So
I
there's
agree.
something sort of uniquely beautiful about poetry like that. And for me, it was interesting because I was very Christian growing up. Like my grandpa was a pastor, and I was a true believer till I was 18. Then I questioned my faith and had a sort of period of leveling up my faith, so to speak, going from a child's version of faith to a more sophisticated level of faith over like 8 years.
Mm.
And
But I think
that's a
everybody
much.
has that journey, though. Everybody has that journey, especially being out. I don't know where you're from, but being from the South, especially in South Carolina, the home of the Bible Belt. We got the buckle up
Mm,
here, the belt buckle.
yeah. So
But
I'm from
yeah,
I'm from Central Cali, which is like the conservative-ish part of
okay,
California. And
okay.
my grandpa was a pastor, so we're a very conservative family in that sense.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I personally, just once again born into Christianity and whatnot. But by the same time, about 17, 18, well, 18 and 19, 17, I actually was called to be a minister. Like I studied to actually become a minister. But as I got older, that's when I kind of started like questioning things, and I started studying other religions. I had friends who were part of the Nation of Islam, friends that were Orthodox Muslims,
mhm.
friends that were 5%ers. I would study under them, and I just broadened my philosophy,
Rich
and I started
Piana
just
five
creating.
percenters.
Huh?
So I've heard two things about 5%ers. I know there's
Okay.
like this bodybuilding guy named Rich
Mm-hmm.
Piana who created like a nutrition line, and it's the like be the 5%, the 95% go one way, be the 5% work hard. And then I know there's something else associated with that I don't know about.
Well, real
Uh,
quick, but that's the philosophy of the 5%ers. They're a branch of the Nation of Islam, the Black Muslims. They're a
oh,
branch of
okay,
it.
okay.
But the 5%ers is the same philosophy. 5% of the population got it, 95% deaf, dumb, and blind. You got to find their way back to Allah. So that's the whole purpose of the 5%ers. But they study the same rules and edicts of the Muslims, but just more geared towards Black nationalist philosophy.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of interesting. That's a whole interesting sort of plane of study for anyone that wants to
yes.
go. Uh,
Yeah.
the whole, um, yeah, I mean, Nation of Islam, but also like that sort of the Hotep sort of side of things, and like there's a lot of interesting sort of.
And that's a whole nother
Um,
branch. And that's a whole nother branch from that. That's not even 5%. It's a whole nother branch to Hotel. Yeah,
oh, okay.
the RBG, Revolutionary Gangster, the RBGs, they're MO type philosophies. It's a whole other branch away from that. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting because it was. I saw some. I watched a bunch of videos and did some research on that very recently, actually, in the last couple months. And one dude who was like this academic, snarky type was like, "It's a black supremacist movement that believes in mysticism and conspiracy theories," and like it was totally dismissive. And I was like, if you study this stuff and that's what you get out of it, you're not thinking, you're defending some sort of worldview. You're
Right.
not
Which
seeing what, like to focus on that is to try to just dismiss the whole thing, in my opinion.
right. To even say, especially if from what we study historically in this country, to say that anything with black and supremacists is an oxymoron to us because we've never been a supremacist. To be a supremacist, you had to have some type of power to me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it. I don't.
Yeah.
There's no black supremacy anywhere. Where is that? Where does that exist? Please show me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely I'm on the side of like it's a philosophy more than like a movement type of thing, or more than a power position. Like I understand the role that power has. Um, I consider outside of human beings power to be the most like valued and sought after commodity on the planet. Like it's very much at play, for sure.
Well, I think. Well, let me interject for a second. I to be a black nationalist, okay, but a black supremacist, that ideology, philosophically, ideologically, that doesn't make sense to me because that
Mhm.
still ties into power. To have pride in what you are ethnically, that's a nationalistic perspective. That's not a
Oh, okay.
supremacist. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? That's not
Yeah,
supremacy
yeah, yeah.
because you have Greek Fest, you have Oktoberfest, which are things that they show pride in their nationality. When a black person
Mm-hmm.
do it, it's often questioned why you got to have this, or y'all trying to exercise some black supremacy. No, that's having love for yourself. Because I love myself don't mean I hate you.
No, no,
That's
no, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Now,
So that's where
I
that comes from.
subscribe to that 100%. Like we got to kind of make up our mind. There's this idea of like there's this MMA fighter named Cain Velasquez who's got a tattoo called Brown Pride, and for a long time I was like I had two feelings about it because I'm like on one hand, like as a white guy, obviously if I was like white pride, that wouldn't go over well. It would mean something different, and so I'm kind of on the outside looking in, like,
But why do you
hmm.
think that? Let me ask you. Why do you think that is though? Why would you feel
So
differently?
I do think there's a healthy place for positive associations with like Celtic culture or like the Scots or European. Like there's a tie to have that's healthy to your past, and um, I think that we have so there was sort of a trick played. Uh, this is a really big, broad perspective. So please bear with me here.
All
But
right, no problem. We talking,
basically,
baby. I
the
love it.
answer is this: white supremacy had to morph from being direct oppressive to indirect oppressive after the Civil Rights Act. And part of this narrative that keeps us all held down is what pins us against each other. And so, white guilt, or this idea um, that white people should regard their own relationship with their own race differently than any other race, sort of seeped into the consciousness out of guilt from real harm and real evil that was done. That's where it comes. Like for me, I know the history of America, so I'm not like, yeah, white people, you guys, and not to be like, you guys, but in a good
Yeah,
way,
I
you
got you.
guys came up from slavery. Like
Right.
that's something to be proud of. That's not something to be, uh, that is so there. So I understand it to some degree. Uh, I guess I sort of just get, I don't know. I don't judge it so much as
Well, let me shine some light. Let me give you a perspective on
yeah,
it. And
yeah.
I love the fact that we can have a healthy conversation. I think more of this is definitely needed. A couple of things. You got to think when that brother had brown pride or whatever. That's trying to when you got some people who don't have pride in themselves because of what you just said, because of slavery. Yeah, we as a whole may have found a way to uproot ourselves from that, but a lot of us to be lost along the way, not just physically but
Mhm.
mentally. So there's not a pride factor. There's a loss.
There's a,
That's
I, yeah, the
yeah.
pride is very much like an opposite or an antidote to shame or to, to, uh, yeah, to shame or to sort of a low self-esteem associated with something, trying to build
Right.
yourself up in a positive light. Now it's interesting because there's a show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, come on.
You like
First
it?
of all, man, I am a nerd. I'm a cool nerd.
Okay, okay,
I know
okay, okay,
that whole world. I'm astute in right there.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I
So
actually
Uncle
like M
Iroh
Night
said,
Shyamalan. I actually like M Night Shyamalan's version. I mean, it's some things he kind of left off and messed up a little bit. But overall, that was a cool movie. That's a side note. But yeah,
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 I
yeah.
think
Go
it
ahead.
looked dope, but like there were certain things like you made the
Yeah,
good guys white, you made the bad guys
yeah,
dark.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Definitely. Yeah,
even
you
I'm
see.
like, and he said it's just because he wanted to see. So apparently, this is the story I've heard that he wanted Zuko to be Indian. So that's the
Okay.
whole reason why he did that whole thing. But I'm like, but why? But then why did you have to call him Ong instead of Aang?
Aang.
Right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I'm like, come on now. But
Yeah, I guess
visually, it was beautiful.
I guess I'm really focused on the visual part. Like that was a great job. But yeah, the little other stuff, yeah, that kind of hurt the movie. But go ahead. You were saying I don't want to get back on my point, but go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Um, Uncle Iroh said that pride is not the antidote to shame, but its source. And
Right.
meaning just so here's my philosophy, and here's sort of like where I feel like we have to settle on some sort of point. Here's how I feel about uh, the Black community's identity as the Black community. Um, Individualism is fundamentally like the accurate way to describe the world. We are all just individuals with our own personality, our own interests, our own inclinations, our own story, our own challenges. And to make your life about any category, like you're a man, you're black, you're at this age group, you were born in this region, like all of those things are much less meaningful to you as a person than your individual identity as a poet, as a musician, as a spirit and a soul. And so I try to not just see the world that way, but speak about the world that way, and try to not make my political or any other focuses about race when it doesn't have to be, just as a way of trying to do my best to accurately see the world. Now, when some people are treated differently based off of their race, their racial identity in that sense is forced upon them in a way that someone who isn't attacked for their race doesn't experience. So me, there's no white boy, gringo, cracker. There's nothing that anyone could say around me or do around me really that would cause me serious stress or concern. That most of them could be like, you're a jackass. Like that's it. That's the worst that I have to deal with. I had a manager in Utah who I was a car detailer there at Hertz Rental Cars, and his name was Kenny Leonard. Shout out to Kenny if he ever sees this. And he was from Chicago. He was at the time 50 years old. He played semi-pro basketball up in Canada, so he had sort of lived life, done his thing, and was settling in on just trying to sort of hop from job to job, and I don't know if he was after healthcare or what, but I enjoyed talking to him, and he taught me a lot. But he very much showed me how, like, being attacked in your youth for your race makes you forge a good and bad attachment to it. And I think it's understandable, but I also think that if you do there's a danger in seeing the world as black people and white people doing their thing instead of just people doing their thing. Especially when it comes to, like I said, white supremacy in the United States morphed from direct to indirect policies. The policies that are holding the black community back now, in my opinion, are all anti-poor policies that intersected with the black community being disproportionately poor, and that had an outsized effect, right? If you have a policy that attacks poor people, this community is overrepresented in poor people, or I don't know if I said that right, but anyways, you know what I mean.
I got what you're saying.
Then you're going to have this outsized sort of result. And if you look at all of the communities based off of their relative poverty rates since 1970, single parenthood has exploded disproportionately depending on their socioeconomic status. The incarceration rate has exploded depending on their socioeconomic status. That doesn't, and then so there's that sort of indirect system, and then there's just individual racist assholes that are allowed to be in the system. Like, have you ever heard, I'm sure you've heard of Daryl Davis. He converted Klansmen to no longer being Klansmen.
Yeah.
And he's a musician too. He likes to boogie woogie. What was I going? Where was I going with this? Dang it. I lost track of what I was saying.
And that's fine. Well, let me say this real quick for those who are listening, y'all. We're having a healthy conversation. I know we got our emotions can get brewed up when we have such touchy topics, but we just put it all down and come up with some kind of dialogue about it. So, but in conclusion, what I was saying earlier, and I definitely should get back just why these people, like my brother had the brown pride, or anybody say any kind of pride, and basically you touched on most of it. But when you have a system where you feel that, it's out to get you per se, and you trying to not only develop some kind of self-pride, you want to get the people around you to feel pride in themselves. So you're going to hear all kinds of things about, hey, we got to have pride in ourselves. We got to love ourselves, and I think that get interpreted or misinterpreted that, we hate everybody else. So that's anybody who's been done wrong in America. And shout out to the real OG here about even the natives of this country. Probably the most disenfranchised people in this place. You know what I'm saying? That they pretty much eradicated. They're not even really represented at all. You know what I'm saying? But it seems like the system itself, has turned on anybody with any kind of type of melanin in their skin. And when we try to fight back about it, we villainize. You know what I'm saying? But we're told to trust the system. It's some kind of political socialization. When we go to school, we're taught that, hey, this system loves you, or the police loves you. But when we see the opposite, or we see the opposite in our communities, it's going to form those kind of rationales in our head that we just
Yeah,
can't win. You know,
I think there's an intentional sort of wedge inserted into this because of the political dynamics. So when I say, so here's the thing, modern white supremacy, as I believe it exists in our system, is bipartisan. And that is the big thing. That's the big thing. It's not Republicans. It's Democrats aren't innocent. And just think about this, right? So here's the school system, right? Our school system is funded. First off, the teachers' unions are totally in control of it. And our system is funded by property taxes, which means poor communities with low property value get no money per kid, and rich communities with lots of property value get tons of money per kid. The Democrats fully support this system. They don't want to switch to an alternative mechanism like voucher systems where every kid gets the same amount of money. And our current system, where you live determines where you're allowed to go to school. It's literal segregation, but it's socioeconomic segregation. But literally, you can't, a black woman trying to get who lied about her paperwork to get her kid into a better school got arrested because she did so. And you could say she probably got arrested and was prosecuted because she was black. Like she wouldn't have been gone after quite as much if she wasn't black.
Right.
But that's, again, I'm talking about the education system. So our education system is literally, we have neo-segregation, we have the disparate investment economically, and that's built into the system, and the teachers unions just care about getting their piece. That's it. So it doesn't matter what's happening to the students. Larry Elder, who's running for governor in California, has talked about at certain schools here in California, 50 to 70% of the kids can't read, write, and can't read and write at grade level, can't do math at grade level. I think at Crenshaw High School, 2% of the students there can do math at grade level. So the schools are just failing those people. And it's very simple. Like the bad area where there's crime or where it's hard to live, the houses aren't as good, whatever the reason, the bad area, whatever you want to call it, the poor area. The bad teachers or the teachers that don't have the options because they're not as competitive kind of all end up there. And the ones that can compete and go to the best schools with the highest pay, they go elsewhere. And it's backwards because and this is my experience because I was in honors classes and regular classes. The best teachers that I saw were the regular class teachers because they have to work with students who don't get it as easily. So their teaching skills have to actually be developed. The honors teachers just literally showed up and said, here, go get this homework done. And because the students were like next level, they just got it done. That was my sort of across the spectrum experience. So we have a system where literally where the teachers should be going, they're not going, and where the wrong teachers, and also we have teachers where we can't fire them because of the unions too. So you just have a bunch of teachers that, I think it's like 15,000 teachers in California that have been said just completely incompetent. And it's not so much that like people should be fired for no reason. It's just if you make it so it costs $500,000 in legal fees to fire someone, it's cheaper to just keep paying them year after year on your budget because you have a 1 year budget. So it's like we pay him 50 grand or 60 grand or whatever, or we have a $500,000 lawsuit this year. And so that's really the issue. It's not so much that teachers, I'm all pro union. I just don't think the government should be behind the unions, giving them special deals. I think that's where we get into sketchy territory. But anyways, so that's one example, the education system, where the Democrats fully support that system, fully support the policies, and it's absolutely contributing to holding the black community and people of color back generally, disproportionately.
Yeah, think about all those factors that you stated. What type of individual is that going to produce? You can have a disenfranchised, angry black person who feel like they can't win. There's a system they feel is totally against them. So what do people expect to happen? That's my question. What do you expect?
So I'm sort of showing up here like I understand everything up until this point. Come here, let's get this shit handled. That's sort of like just my only thing. We can't talk about there's no place in the law where we're gonna write and the rules for black people are this and the rules for white people are this and the rules for some people will say that's kind of how it is now. But what I mean is the solutions. But when we create, so here's the thing, cops should not be allowed to abuse any citizens, period. Doesn't matter the color of your skin. The fact that it's having this outsized effect means this community is like of the most need of help. So I understand all of that. But the solutions are going to be policy. There's no solution that's going to say, and when a cop is interacting with a black guy, he has to do this instead of this. It's just when the cop of any color interacts with the citizen of any color and does something wrong, they need to be held accountable. And that's all just policy. It has nothing to do with race. So like the problems can be racial in nature even, but the solutions kind of can't be if it's going to be law at the bottom of it.
And to your point, we got to find a way to word it. We're still coming to those who have been abused by it, get some kind of favor out of it. It's still got to be worded some kind of way.
So I think so you're sort of talking about like a mixture of just like compensation for abuse, like you would get at most, like, you know, like some people get paid when they, you know, a corporation, you know, they sue a corporation, they get paid because the corporation did them wrong, that type of thing. I don't know what it's called legally, but there's that thing. And then there's also reparations, which is sort of more of a broader political topic. I've never heard anyone frame the reparations discussion this way, but I think there's one interesting way in which it might be done appropriately. First off, you just sort of have to accurately describe who was at fault for slavery and for Jim Crow. And it was the government. It was us collectively allowing these laws to exist.
Right.
So it was an institution. Right. So we are collectively guilty of that, just as Americans. Like that is our responsibility. Maybe not guilty, but we're collectively responsible for what has happened. Just as like if we make commitments to people in other countries, we should keep those commitments, even if we don't agree with all of them necessarily. And you know, to some degree, we should be concerned about that. Sorry, man, I keep losing my.
Nah, it's okay, man. I understand definitely, man. I was watching, and I'm a real big hip hop head. I was watching Vlad TV on YouTube. I know people have different opinions about Vlad, but he interviewed a lot of artists. But he interviewed the actor Michael J. White. Of course, if you nerd like me, you know he played Spawn back in the days. So, but he talked to him about the whole reparations situation, and Vlad had to recant his statement. He felt like there's no way the government would be able to give or afford reparations to African Americans or people of African descent. There's no way to do it. Then the pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, here comes money given out for those who's going through the pandemic, like thousands of dollars to almost everybody. So that shows that the government can make things happen like that. It can make it happen.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
To see how it looks like, we don't know. But
the idea that we can't afford it.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Now, how to manage, how to structure that's a conversation. But to say you can't afford it, that's the bull, man. That's bull.
Yeah, yeah. So like let's see, if we did the math, so I think there's about 45 million Americans right now that are Black Americans, African American. So if you did like $1,000, that's 45 billion. 10,000, that's 450 billion. 100,000, that's 4.5 trillion. So $100,000 to every Black American, that's 4.5 trillion. That's what the United States federal government spends in 1 year.
Yeah, I'm about to say it can happen. It's possible.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned reparations. That's what I was trying to make the point of. So the American institution is guilty. What is the actual sort of loss? What has been robbed from the Black community? If they were forced to be paid nothing, then what you can say is what were the wages of that era, right? Of the 1700s, 1600s, whatever. What were the wages of that era? What were the total number of hours they were forced to work at that wage? You come up with a total number, adjust for inflation. That is the direct, appropriate compensation for that historical harm. Now, what does that look like? I haven't done that math, but I think, again, America as an institution having committed the crime, America as an institution having to pay for the crime, and that being the actual inarguable, like, justifiable compensation to say this is what you were actually directly, obviously robbed of, and only people that are descendant of So only like if anyone is black in America, but they showed up here 5 days ago, they would not get reparations. I would assume like that wouldn't make sense to me. It would have to be people that have been in America for at least 100 years or something like that. Just
Or
to
direct
say,
descendants of
like
slaves.
direct descendants. You can't have it be just some Jamaican showed up last week and he's getting paid. Because then there'll be people that are like forcing the immigration right before that goes through because they're from, if you're black and you're in India or whatever, or wherever, Cuba, you're like, I'm going to make it in before the payment goes out.
But
And then it gets diluted, right? The people that should be getting it don't get,
right,
because
right.
they weren't harmed. If you showed up here 5 minutes ago, there's no historical harm that this country has done to you that's tied to
Right.
your history.
Direct descendants of slaves. But with your equation per se, it'll probably be way more than 100,000. You know what I'm saying? I like how you say,
Yeah.
okay, if we did this number, it costs this
Yeah.
much.
But
But
I
if you
was just
go
trying
by
to give a sense of $100,000 per individual is 1 year of the government's spending,
right, but
right?
my point,
So
but my point is, and I feel you. That's great. But if we do the math with, okay, what was the wages of that time? And most slaves work from sun up to sun down. You're talking about almost 12
yeah,
hours a day. And then
hmm
you add in the inflation and what that means in these days of time. It's gonna be a whole lot of money, man. You know,
I'd like to see someone do it so we can see like what it actually looks like. Because like for sure
you
it's a
got to
lot of
want to
money,
do
but
it.
so is 4.5 trillion. Like 4.5
Yeah,
trillion. If you actually wrote that out, you're gonna get tired before you finish.
right. But I want to figure that out myself. I'm
Yeah,
glad you gave me something to think about. I'm gonna write
yeah,
that
for
down.
sure, for sure. All right. So, were you always in music, or was there a transition where you got more into music after you sort of started being creative? And how did you first pop? How did you? What was it
um,
that made you? Yeah, hit
well,
it.
around the same time I was writing poetry, I was writing hip hop. You know, shout out my best friend, my brother Johnny C. Weaver. We around seventh grade, we were so competitive against each other. We were trying to formulate this rap battle, and one of our peers, maybe 1 or 2 years older than us, he was supposed to be the mediator, but he heard both of us rap. He said, "Why don't I just form a group?" So like we just became a group. So I've been rapping since 12 years old, man. And I was fortunate as
Okay.
I got older to be a part of several groups where we were able to open up for some big name acts. With Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, Melly Mel, we opened up for them. Kid and Play, we did a concert, a talent show we performed before Kid and Play. Doodle Bug from Diggle Planets. I don't know how old you are. You may not know none of these people I mentioned.
No, I don't.
Okay,
I don't. I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I'm 27. I don't. I'm
Oh, okay.
27. So
Oh man. Hey, and salute to you, man. You're very wise for a 27-year-old. Wow, that's awesome.
thank you.
But yeah,
Thank you.
so these
Thank
are like some of the architects of hip hop back in the day. And we were able to open up for them and just kind of grow. Then we kind of all went our separate ways. Then I started doing a lot of solo work. Without a lot, but I've done some solo work. And just past couple of years, I decided to really focus on put together a classic album. And I was able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they had the Upstate South Carolina Music Awards, and I won Artist of the Year for my album. You know, because and y'all don't have the album, get the album. Manifest. It's on every streaming
Yeah.
platform. Yeah, so
Yep. Yeah, I was listening to it. Yesterday, I think. Listened to 2 or 3 songs, and I dig it. I dig it. I'm a metalhead for the most part. I
name
like
some groups.
the
I listen to metal.
you
Name
know,
some groups.
Disturbed,
I like Disturbed.
Disturbed. So the full spectrum, but like Disturbed, Shinedown,
I don't know
um,
Shinedown. I know Disturbed.
uh, Five Finger Death Punch.
They're
There's this
really bad.
band called Within Temptation that's a female vocalist that's pretty bad.
Wow.
Um,
See, I never heard of them.
In This Moment with Maria Brink, she looks like a human Barbie doll that got plastic surgery in a good way.
Wow.
In a good way, but she looks very like she. I don't know if she did the corset thing, but she's got like the stupid hourglass figure, and she's got like a real pointy like Who nose from Whoville, like real pointy nose, and so she looks very much like dolled up. But I think that's mostly just how she looks, which is dope. But
Wow.
she's got one of the deepest, richest screaming voices of a chick, like period. It sounds good.
Hey, that's fun.
Like
I
it
never heard
actually
of that.
sounds good. Women can't really do that as much, in my opinion. Like not
I never heard
not hit
that.
the rich lower notes.
The richest, deepest screaming voice. I like that. I like that.
Yep.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
I know
yeah, it's
Disturbed.
cool.
I don't know other bands you name, but I know Disturbed. But
Yeah.
I got into the grunge. Well, I love all music. My mom, shout out to my mom. She always exposed us to different kind of music, and my whole goal was to get more album vinyl than her. I got about 3 crates.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than her, but
Nice.
more than most people. But I have like some classic rock, some alternative music. Man, I'm a big Jimi Hendrix fan. Yeah. So, but that
Nice,
grunge,
nice.
that '90s grunge era, I love that as far as like an
Mm-hmm.
alternative from hip hop, because I'm just a huge hip hop head. But the Nirvanas, the who else? Papa Roaches, and
Mm-hmm.
all them groups from that era I was into.
Breaking Benjamin. They were pretty big. I was big into rock in the like 2007, 2006
Okay,
kind of
gotcha,
era.
gotcha,
I was
gotcha.
listening to radio a lot back then.
Great, yeah.
Um, yeah, I kind of got into hip hop only as far as they have been political. So it's
Okay,
like Immortal Technique, Brother
yes,
Ali,
yes.
um, Jesse G is kind of a newer guy. Tom McDonald, I like what he does. Um, Jelly Roll more so talks about depression and stuff like that, and like being in dark places. So I kind of resonated with that because I've had anxiety and depression, like your TED Talk, depression. I
Yeah,
dealt with that very much, and we could
you
talk
got
about
it.
that in a little bit.
Okay, get into some Public Enemy. They're like the
Public Enemy.
godfathers of conscious rap. You know what I'm saying? As far as the
Okay. Okay.
political.
Yeah.
Man, I see
Okay.
the Public Enemy Dead Prayers. You gotta get it, man. Dead Prayers is woo,
All
woo.
right. I'll check them out for
Yes.
sure. All right. Public
Definitely Dead
Enemy. Yep.
Prayers.
I've heard of them. I've never gone back and actually listened.
You
I
gotta,
probably
oh
heard some of
man.
their stuff without knowing it was them. Probably.
Right. One that only had one mainstream song called Hip Hop. It's bigger than hip hop, hip hop. I don't know if you ever
Okay.
heard that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's them.
That sounds
That
vaguely familiar.
that was their only mainstream song. The rest of it was like day schools, just radical titles. You know what I'm saying?
Have you ever heard of War Porn Industries?
Uh-uh.
That's
No, what's that?
Everlast.
Oh,
Everlast went
I
and
like
tied up with a
Everlast.
couple. He went and tied up with a couple of OG rapper guys, and they did a whole new rap album. Because you know how he used to be a part of House of Pain, and then
Yeah.
he kind of went and did his like more musical guitar stuff. He went back to the hip hop rap side of it and did some work. And the group is called War Porn Industries. They did some good stuff, some good
Huh.
work.
That's
Yeah,
what's up. I
yeah.
was trying to see
I
if I
check
had
it.
my. Here it is. So the album, Dead Prayers album is called Let's Get Free. The album cover, I don't know if you can see it, is all these black kids holding up rifles. That's the album cover.
Oh dang, yeah.
Oh man.
Hey, on that point, I want to make this point real quick. It is a tragedy in America, Second Amendment America, that young black men or the black community has any issue carrying firearms, and
Shouldn't be.
that the news media will say he was armed, as if that's some excuse.
Right.
If we have the Second Amendment, you should be allowed to have a gun on you and not be considered a threat. So that's bullshit, straight up. Like that whole narrative is almost not that you could still be a threat with a gun or without a gun, obviously, but
yeah,
they're different issues. And that excuse of he was armed, it's like, well, that doesn't mean he should have been murdered.
Right, it villainized the victim, man. But that's why the Panthers was under so much heat, because they understood that. Huey Newton, those guys, they understood. Oh, we can carry this. We can carry our weapons. We have the right to do that. It's in the Constitution. And then they didn't like that. The police didn't like that. J. Edgar Hoover didn't like that. So yeah, it's definitely a big conspiracy. But yeah, you got to.
So what can you tell me? So you just mentioned J. Edgar Hoover. I don't know much about the man. Ooh. I know who the movie was made about him. I know he was the FBI director back in the day, right?
Yeah, for a long time, man. Right near the 40s until like maybe the early 80s, I think. Maybe before. I think he may have died before then. But he implemented such a racist, violent kind of institution with the CIA, man. His work still carried on today. But great movie. Leonardo DiCaprio did a great job, by the way. He's a great actor. But yeah, that dude was evil, man. That dude was evil.
Yeah, there's a program, I think it's called COINTELPRO, where the FBI and the CIA infiltrated the Black Panthers to try to, and it was various protests as well, that they would go in there and they would intentionally create havoc to get an appropriate police response to then shut down the protests and basically
Yeah.
and the push for social change. You know, cut it off at the knees, so to speak. And
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely happens. And you know, we don't know if that's stopped happening.
Nah, it hasn't started happening.
And so
I've watched.
and that's what makes the protests, and especially with COVID and that happened last year, and just all of this, such a painful kind of a situation, because I feel like we want to have the conversation, but everything is sort of working away from having the conversation in a healthy way. You know, I feel
Well,
like
I
because
think
then you
last
have,
year, man.
because like obviously anyone that sees people rioting or obviously like burning things down, arson, and assault and all those kinds of things. Everyone agrees that they're wrong if they're unprovoked, but then it's like, well, is that an actual person in the protest doing it, or is it an actor trying to elicit this whole response? And then it's like, well, what about the people on the other side and the provocateurs on the other side? How much of them are manipulated? And then how do we have this conversation when we're dealing with all this crap? You know, anyways, it's a mess.
Here's my take on that on rioting. You got to think, man. This country was founded on protesting. It's founded on rioting. You know, you go way back to the Boston Tea Party. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They got tired of
yeah.
having taxation without representation. They
Yeah.
rebelled against that. They protested. They rioted, and this is the
Yeah.
blueprint they left us.
We
And really,
literally violently revolted against a oppressor because they
right,
were taxing us too much.
right.
So
But
I mean,
what
more
we
than that, but mainly they were taxing us too much.
exactly. But in history, it's glorified in history when they did it. When some people of color or some African American people or people of African descent do that, brown, whatever you want to use to describe these people with melanin, they do it. It's a problem. It's violence. You know what I'm saying? You know, but this is what the country was founded on. This is what we're taught in school. It's glorified. It's painted like this
Yeah,
heroic picture. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
when we do it, it's a problem. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
yeah. I think it's important. It's important, definitely, to be able to say like, yeah, it's important to be able to put it in that context to say like the rebellious American spirit should not should not
right,
should not die out. But at the same time, um, like if I'm like, so I'll give you an example. Now this isn't the Black Lives Matter thing. This is a different protest. This was a Antifa protest, whatever you want to call that, sort of, whatever that is. It's definitely a thing. It's not just an idea.
right.
That is the scariest, most Orwellian thing I ever heard come out of Biden's mouth. Was it's just an idea. The people beating journalists, they're just an idea. But Andy No got beaten up by Antifa up in Portland for recording them. He's a journalist, Asian American journalist.
Right.
Um, and a lot of people were like, whatever. Like they just didn't care. And the thing is, he's not an oppressor to anybody. He's not holding any system up. He's just a dude there recording, being a
Right.
journalist. So who is so? Here's a separate point. I don't know who I was watching, and I don't know where I was watching them, but it was this black young man, American, who was saying, you know, when you go and you start burning down businesses, or you go and you start creating havoc in the community to make your point, that does one thing. And he said, when you see these white people that are doing their protesting or whatever, they go straight to the Capitol, right? It's like and Washington, what happened on January 6th, or before that, at many state capitals across the country, in Michigan and many other places, there were these, you know, white people protesters, if you want to think of it that way, that went there. So where is the anger being directed at? If it's a crossfire amongst the people, we're just going to suffer for it. But if it's, we know who's in charge, we know who's holding up. And that's why I try to drive home like the moderate, non-racial sort of angle politically, is because it's not the everyday people that are holding the system in place. It's the people in power that are holding the system in place. And that's cross party, cross racial, cross gender, cross all of it. It's fundamentally about a system that's in place that needs to be in a
Well,
healthy and moral way sort of
I
reversed.
think I think that happens because those say for instance you're in a community where you go to the liquor store and those people that run that really mistreat you all the time. Or you go in this clothing
mm,
store and
mm,
they watch you every minute and force you to buy something because they're scared you're going to steal. And in a plaza, they're part of the problem too. And that's kind of like why those buildings get burned down. And second thing
mm-hmm.
is because you see them all the time versus you don't know people in the Capitol. You don't know who's doing that. You know there's a government. You know this infrastructure that's holding you down, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not in your face every day. So it's easy for me
Mm-hmm.
to burn this store up versus going to the Capitol.
Yeah.
And two, it might be easier for some white people to go up there and riot and protest the Capitol versus we all go up there and do it. Well, they're gonna bomb us. That's the fear we have. They're gonna shoot us down
No,
because we at the
I can
at
understand
the
that.
Capitol. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot harder to
And
say.
I wanted to be clear, like that video, the dude was making it about like, because he was a black guy talking to the black community, talking about how these white people protest and stuff, and so that's kind of why I use that. But
Yeah, I mean, it makes
like
sense.
you've seen like there's like it's not just black people that are on the Black Lives Matter front, so it's obviously this
right,
isn't just that kind of
right,
thing. I just wanted to make sure everyone watching knew I wasn't trying to be
right.
all whatever.
No, I'm listening to you carefully, man. But that's the thing. But the brother is right. It does make more sense instead of burning these small businesses down. Let's go straight to the source. But we kind of like, we want
Well,
to.
it's
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't
And
know.
it's hard when you don't like. Here's the thing: I've spent 10 years. Like I'm not an academic person, but like I didn't like school. I didn't like teachers. I didn't like showing up and sitting there 7 hours a day and just listening to these people drone on. But I like learning, and so I spent like once I could vote about 10 years ago. I'm 27, so about 10 years ago, I started studying politics because I'm like I have to vote, so I better vote like knowing what I'm talking about. It's literally taken me like 8, 9, 10 years of like studying it in a way most people will never study it to get a good grasp on what's actually happening.
That's
Like
good.
so I was a car detailer for 3 years. That was 45 hours a week. Maybe 1 hour out of the shift every day, I was listening to music. The rest of it was lectures, Jordan Peterson lectures, economics lectures, historical lectures. I was feeding my brain just because I have a pretty good mind, pretty active mind. So it helps keep it sharp, keep it active. I went a little too deep maybe, but,
No, man, I love it. I'm here for it, man.
but anyway, so I put like, just in that alone, I put in, 4,000 hours of listening to stuff over those 3 years, 40 hours a week or so. And it took that long to get a grasp on how we actually start approaching and tackling these issues with the government. So I don't judge anyone for being like, yeah, you can go to the Capitol, but like, what are you going to do once you're there, right? Like, how do you actually like
Yeah.
effectuate the change? What are your demands? What are the political prescriptions you're asking for? And on that note, if you go back to whether it's Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or anyone, you should look into their political philosophies and beliefs and what they thought were the solutions to the issues we were facing. Because I agree with them on many of those fronts, especially like I think MLK entertained a sort of UBI type of system, a universal basic income type of a system. And there's a version of that I think can work and can work well to actually to actually help people in a way. And so it would be, so here's the long and short of it. And this is how I would implement it in California. The total budget of California is like $5,500 a Californian. So if you took $3,000 of that and you gave every Californian citizen $250 a month to spend on whatever needs they have, wealth, healthcare, housing, whatever, and that's guaranteed income, $250 a month they get. That helps sort of supplement income for month-to-month expenses over time. But then that $250 a month or $3,000 a year can then be turned into a leverageable loan, guaranteed loan. And so if it was 5% interest and 5% principal payments, that would make it a $30,000 loan you can get with that $3,000 a year guaranteed income. So the issues of welfare tend to take two forms: help with the month to month, and then help with big random expenses. So if it's a mom with two children that are, a single mom with two kids, that means she's getting $750 a month in help. And she can access a loan up to $90,000 when she needs to, which can be a house payment or anything like that. So it gives you if you need a surgery, if you need money to get a new job, whatever it may
Okay.
be. It's that versatile, big
Got you.
expense, little expense, hits both points, and it's only $3,000 a year per person. Instagram has me tied to 1 hour at a time, so I have 10 seconds, and then so we'll have to hop back on if you
Okay.
want to keep going. I'm assuming you do, right?
Yeah. I got a few more minutes.
Okay.
Let's do it. So y'all come
Okay.
right back. Y'all come right back.